Well, hey there. Welcome back to the People Gardener podcast. I am excited to have a new friend here. We met online. We both belong to a business coaching program, and I'm just intrigued with what she does. Her name is Karen Seltz, and I think the best thing is for you to just introduce yourself, what it is you do, and then we'll get into the coaching part for the small business owner.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having me, Rhonda. I love talking about what I do and I love meeting new people. And I'm so grateful to you for having me on and being open to my brand of weirdness. So, yeah, it's really fascinating because one of the things I've done in the different iterations of my business is I used to call myself the uncensored self love coach. And so that is just a little forte, a little one. What I do now is sacred purpose embodiment. And what that entails is really three phases. The first phase, we clear unresolved trauma or difficult situations from the body, from the brain, so that people have a clean slate. A lot of times they don't think they have any difficult situations that are still running them, but it's like the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, like it's always there. And until you resolve it, a lot of times you're not reacting to what's right in front of you, but you're reacting to what's in the past. And it takes up so much of your available energy. So if you find yourself exhausted at any point, you probably have some stuff to clear. And then the second phase of what I do is actually rewiring the brain for what people do want. So we're reinstalling new hardware in the brain to support habits and behaviors, ways of being that will get you where you want to go, that will create the results that you really want and to help you become the person that you know you really are. But there have been things in the way. And then the
So
third part,
what you're saying is like stop the insanity. Keep doing what you're doing and expecting you're going to get something different.
exactly. And giving yourself grace because this stuff is on autopilot.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people think they have control over it, and you really don't. By the time you're 30 years old, you are a set of conditions and programs. And a lot of that stuff is automatic. You're not even consciously aware you're doing things.
Yeah. Well, and we as human beings do not understand at all the power of the brain and what it's doing automatically in the background. So yeah.
Yeah,
But
much of it is beautiful and some of it is antiquated. It's like it doesn't work for where we are in this day and age. It's like, yeah, it's great for zebra who's being chased by lion. You know, their autonomic nervous system kicks on and their legs get strong and their brain gets dumb. Or somebody's mounting their mate, their jaw gets strong because they're angry and they can bite. But for us, like running away from a boss who's confronting us or biting someone, really appropriate.
Right.
And brain gets dumb. So we are often in this stress response and there are no resources available for our logical mind. And we're just this set of programs. So it doesn't really serve us. So that's one of the things I do is like help clear all that crap. So you
Mhm.
actually access to your brain. Wow, what a concept.
Yeah, for sure. For
And
sure.
then the third thing that I do with people is then create an inspired action plan. So they're stretching outside of their comfort zone. They're practicing their new skills and ways of being, and they're actually creating their vision. They're creating results based on what they want and who they choose to be. So it's super fun. I love it a lot.
Wow. Yeah, for some of my listeners, this might be a completely new avenue of thinking. For others, part of their life, I have been aware, but really haven't um, dove into necessarily for myself. But I'm fascinated with how much potential there is and it's untapped. And we just need to spend more time trying to tap into that potential of our brain. when we chatted before getting ourselves organized for this, one of the titles that you were kind of going around was 3 steps to using your subconscious mind for you to create the results you really want. So we'll just use that as a stepping off point. And let's talk about practical applications. You're talking about there's things that need to be cleared. And most of us are completely unaware that there's any clearing that needs to be done. Right. So, how do we as humans recognize a block? Or, like, how do we become aware that we got an issue and we need to get it dealt with?
That's a great question. I'm going to back up a little bit and talk a little bit about physiology and science. So, on a daily basis, most of us think between 60,000 and 70,000 thoughts. That's a lot of thoughts, right?
Oh,
Daily.
yeah.
I mean, it's hard to wrap your head around that. I should have done the math, like how many is that per second?
Yeah.
But it's a lot. And 90% of them are the exact same thoughts we thought yesterday. Now, for me, that is just absolutely mind blowing. Like, so we are this set of programs, and unless something new is introduced into our environment, we're often on autopilot. That's why you can drive to work and home or wherever you're going
Yep.
without any recollection, unless something happens, unless you're almost in an accident. And then that part of your brain will wake you up and say, hey, pay attention. Hey, you're going to die.
Right.
So, how do we know when something needs to be cleared? Well, our physiology will tell us a lot, a lot. So, how's your heart rate? How's your body? Do you have tension? Do you have muscle aches? What's your breathing like? So, if you stop and observe, if you're in a stress response, it's often really quick. You're breathing up in your chest and you might be lightheaded. You might have a vein popping out of your forehead. There are all kinds of things. But here's what happens when you're in a stress response, all of your resources are being mobilized to either fight, which means you have a strong jaw and your arms and legs get all of the blood flow. So that means things like digestion, procreation, repair of your body. So if your body's starting to break down, if you have any type of chronic illness, you are in a stress response a lot. And it's really fascinating. The link, I know this isn't where we thought we were going to go. The link between trauma or unresolved trauma or difficult situations in the brain and inflammation in the body, they are strongly linked. When you resolve that trauma, the inflammation 99% of the time goes away. So do the diseases.
Amazing.
Yeah. So one of the ways to know, like, do I have blocks is to look at your results. What results are you creating? Are they what you intended to create? If not, there's something blocking you. It's that simple.
Wow. Really? Okay, then.
Yeah. Because you get exactly what you intend, but normally for almost everyone, it's exactly what you intend on a subconscious level. And we don't know what that is most of the time unless we're playing with the subconscious mind and talking to it on a very regular basis. But whatever your subconscious mind's intention is for you, that is your result.
Unless you're blocking it.
No, what your unconscious mind
Unconscious.
intends for you is the result you get. So by wanting to create a conscious result, you get to get the subconscious mind and the subconscious mind working together and integrated on the same team, so to speak,
Right.
instead of one operating over here, like speaking Mandarin Chinese, and one over here speaking English. And they're trying to communicate, but they're like, I have no idea what you're saying.
Right.
They're not speaking the same language.
Wow. Okay. So basically, what you're saying is every single one of us every day has blocks.
Yes. Well, yeah,
Yes.
yes. And there are ways around it. So one thing is to look at every single day, like, okay, what are the behaviors wait, let me back up. What are the thoughts and beliefs? Beliefs are simply thoughts that you continue to think over and over and over until you no longer think them. You just believe them. They're like, that's a fact.
Right.
The world is round, right? That's a fact. But beliefs are things like wealthy people are selfish. And you might have that belief without even realizing it's a belief. Like I had that belief growing up because that's what my mom taught me. Like people that have a lot of money are arrogant. They think they're better than everybody else. So I still get to do a lot of work with that one. I have lots of evidence that's not true 100% of the time, right?
Right.
So it's bringing that up to the surface, say, oh my gosh, is that really true? And examining it. So what I do is a practice where I I start to become aware of what are the beliefs that are creating the results that I don't want, because that's a really good place to start. We can pretty much all tell you what we have that we don't want. I mean, that's not that difficult.
Right.
If you ask people like, what do you want? If you had a magic wand, what do you want? A lot of people are like, I don't know. I just don't want this anymore. So start where you are, like start with what you don't want. And then tell your subconscious mind, okay, let me know every time I'm believing anything remotely close to this. Let me know, tap me on the shoulder. Because unless you tell it what to look for, it's filtering out so many millions of bits of information every second. It won't pay attention to that. But once you tell it, okay, let me know when I'm thinking lack thoughts or that this isn't possible for me. It's possible for everyone else, but not me. Whatever your thing is, just let it know. Now, here's the part where most people quit. It gets really uncomfortable really fast because you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, do I think about anything else? That's all I'm seeing. That's my whole filter. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm looking for evidence constantly of how everybody else is better than me. It's going to work for someone else and not me. Stick with it. It's really, really uncomfortable when you first start noticing. And here's what I want you to know. You had that many thoughts about that before. You just weren't aware of them.
Reveling.
When you're not aware of them, you cannot change them.
When you're talking to it and telling it, okay, you need to let me know when I'm thinking these things. Is that something that you do just once? Is that something that you do multiple times a day? Like practically, I'm kind of
Yes.
a practical, logical type of person. So I'm assuming I need to stay on top of this and I need to continue to be asking.
You're absolutely right too, Rhonda, because it's not a practice yet. And one of the things that works with the subconscious mind is repetition. And you get to tell it over and over what to look for. So for me, I celebrate every time I catch one of those thoughts, I celebrate it, which is a way to reinforce, yes, you're doing what I want you to do. Yes. And it's part of my morning practice. Okay. Help me to become aware of these thoughts and to not go unconscious to them ever again. Let me know when I'm thinking this. And then when you catch it, instead of saying, "Oh gosh, what's wrong with me?" You're like, "Yes, I caught it. I caught it." Because when you catch it, you're one step closer to being able to choose something else. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
So at least once a day. And then when you celebrate it, you're reinforcing that behavior and you're reinforcing, yes, that is what I want you to do. You're doing a good job. Now,
Is there a point that you've got that new wiring, those new lanes going that this isn't something that you need to do anymore? Or it's just, yes, I'm going to keep doing this. And now I'm going to deal with another subconscious thought that I need to deal with.
all right, well, I'll just give you an example from my life. So I have this running thread of like, I really love to be right. It feels so good to me to be right about everything. I love it. And now when I catch it, I laugh because it's hilarious because my core beliefs are if I'm right, that means someone else has to be wrong, which is impossible. It's impossible for anybody to be wrong. All truths are true. So we'll get into some all truths are true. So if I believe that the world is unkind, that will be my truth. That will be true for me. I will find evidence for it all day long. Look at this person cut me off. That person, I only had one item in the grocery line and they didn't let me go in front of me. Look how unkind the world is. Whereas if I tell myself, okay, show me evidence, my subconscious mind, I'm telling it what to look for. Show me evidence that the world is kind and it will come. I'll see it everywhere. So, do we need to do this forever? I do so far. I mean, I haven't lived forever, but I still catch it. I catch it all the time. I'm like, oh, there you are. You're sneaky. And it gets sneakier. It's like the ego mind, which I consider the spiritual ego, is the part of us that wants us to feel separate, better than somebody else or less than. But for me, it hasn't gone away. It's just how quickly is the time in between. All right, I did the thing and I caught it. And my goal is to shorten that distance,
Certainly,
like
yeah.
make it shorter and shorter. That's it.
Yeah.
Because it's like you can't get rid of anything. In the moment you think you want to, you're resisting it, which makes you a vibrational match to it. In recovery, like 12-step recovery, they say what you resist persists.
Mhm.
And it's true because you're focusing your attention on it. And what you focus your attention on, that's what you're giving your energy to. And that will expand.
As you're talking, I'm thinking about these small business owners who I serve. This is a powerful thing for them to start using with regards to leading their teams and their people, because they are in the habit of seeing things a certain way or allowing somebody's attitude, somebody's decisions, lots of things to actually affect them and how they interact and what they do. Having access to this and using it has the potential to help the leader be more grounded, I guess, than reactive, because they're trying to find something different than what they perceive they're actually seeing. Because often in conversations, somebody will say something and we make an assumption that this is what they meant, or there was a tone of voice and we assumed that this is what they meant when it isn't what they meant at all. Like in my head, I'm thinking about what you've just been describing as help me not jump to conclusions about how somebody's face was oriented when they talk to me. Like, am I on the right track?
You know what? That is exactly what I'm talking about, clearing the past stuff. Because what if you were a blank slate and you didn't have any facial expressions to compare it to?
Yeah.
You are 100% present in the moment with what's in front of you, which enables you access to the most number of resources. Curiosity is always your friend.
Right.
I love these conversations where you go into the meanings of words because they never mean the same thing to people. So
Hmm.
I love that you brought that up. Like, I'm curious what you meant by this. Like, for me, it means this. What did you mean? It's always different. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And they don't work, you know, they don't. So,
Well,
and that leads us to, it reminds me what you're saying. We talked about what you focus on expands. It's that thing in parenting. Catch your kids doing something right.
mhm,
Catch them
right.
doing something right and praise it. And when you talk about that, they're going to repeat it. It's the same with employees. Like
Mm.
nobody wants to think they're doing a bad job. And it's terrible to work for someone that only points out your shortcomings.
I
Yeah.
believe that nobody intentionally chooses to do a bad job. I just
No.
don't.
And leaders don't mean to demotivate people by only pointing out where the gap is or where people could improve. They just don't know necessarily what motivates people. And everyone's different, but I think everybody needs to know, like, boy, you're doing this so well. And as a business owner, think about what your life would be like or your business would be like without that person's positive contributions.
Mhm.
Because oftentimes we think, oh, they could do better here because Our minds are trained to perceive threats and danger and where, it's survival based.
Right.
But do you want to just survive or do you want to thrive? And do you want your people to just survive or do you want them to be happy? Do you want them to be loyal? Do you want them to do anything for you?
Yeah.
And
Okay. So let's talk about these steps of using the
yes.
subconscious mind.
Yeah. So the first one is really to uncover what those beliefs are that are running you. And the quickest way to find out what they are is to look at your results and know that that is what the subconscious wants for you. And oftentimes it is a safety thing, it's a survival. And it doesn't make sense to us consciously, but fear of rejection is one of the biggest things that motivates the subconscious mind to do what it does. So just be aware of that and start recognizing it. And then decide what you do want. What is your vision as a business owner, as a human being, as a husband, a wife, a partner, whatever it is, a parent? Who do you want to be? What characteristics do you want to have? And then you can kind of reverse engineer like, how does that person think? How does that person feel? How do other people feel around this type of person? And what characteristics do I get to embody? And then what actions do I get to take? So, and then you can think about what are the results you want to create as well. And you can reverse engineer it. So then every single day you are priming your subconscious mind. You're like, okay, let me know when I go unconscious to this behavior, like bring it to my awareness. And those are the things that you don't want. So you can catch them, start catching them, and then show me how I'm already being a leader. Show me how I'm already being curious and compassionate and strong and in integrity, whatever your characteristics are, because you want both. You can't just have this toxic positivity where you're like, yep, today I'm going to be courageous and passionate and whatever it is. You get to look out for all the things that are already programmed into your brain because they're not going anywhere. They're not. So you get to be aware and you get to like really pay attention. And everybody, I think, has heard this analogy like when you start to shop for a new car
Yep.
and you're going to buy a red Jeep, and then everywhere you see red Jeeps. And that is your subconscious mind has information that this is important to you and it's going to look for it and it's going to bring you those opportunities. So when you tell your subconscious mind, okay, help me know when I go unconscious, it will bring those to you. And then what do you do when that happens? Do you remember? Celebrate. You celebrate that you caught it. You do not beat yourself up. You celebrate. And then you decide what you do want, which is step two, like decide what you want. What does this type of person look like, feel like, stand like, walk like? How do people respond around them? What results do they create? And then three is prime your subconscious mind every single day. You tell it what you don't want, what you do want, and you start to become aware and see what happens. Because when you decide you want to see a brighter world, you want happy employees that can't wait to go to work, that are creative, that have the space to be creative, to mess it up. Because creativity cannot happen if you're in a culture where it's not okay to make a mistake. It just won't happen. It's stifled. So decide
I
what.
am listening to you. It's kind of like, wow, we don't just kind of walk around like zombies, right? What you're describing is a choice, is an active application of a process to help you be more present and aware of your own being and what's around you. And every day you have to choose that, not just kind of walk into the day and everything on autopilot. That's just like it's effort. Like you have to want to see things differently. You have to want to be present to be able to make better decisions.
Absolutely. And if you look, in the beginning, we talked about, okay, what are your results right now? And the step two is like, what results do you want? If you look at that gap, allow that to motivate you. That's because it's uncomfortable when you see that gap. You're like, oh, I think I want this, but there's this part of me that is holding me back.
Yeah.
When you see that gap, also, if you can get in touch with what is it costing you staying the same? What is it costing you? What is it costing the people around you in your relationships, whether it's personal or professional? And what is your life going to be like if it continues that way for the next 5 years? Because this is not a long process. It's 2 minutes every day. Is it worth
Right.
it? Is it worth 2 minutes to create this result out here that you really do want? Because oftentimes, if you stay where you are, things don't stay the same. They get way worse
Yeah,
because your soul is going to wake you up, or people are going to leave, or, other people aren't going to be down for what you're doing.
for sure. I'm just thinking of both of us have programs, and in the business coaching that we're in right now, we launch, it could be like, I have the People Gardener Collective, which is a membership for small business, and I've had courses and things in the past, and I'm looking at the practical application of what you're describing here as something that I could be doing every day to enhance the potential result that I want, which is a thriving community of small business owners that support each other. But for me to not be fearful that, oh, nobody's going to come into it, or a bunch of people are going to come in and then they're going to fall away. What you're talking about is that the result that I want, I know what I want. And now it's a case of, um, telling my subconscious mind that's the result I want so that it actually can happen.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a lot to it. I don't know how much more time we have.
Oh, we got a few minutes yet.
Okay. Well, I'll just explain this
Another five
concept
or
really.
so.
I'm going to explain the concept really quickly. So, everybody's familiar with a computer virus.
Yeah.
So, think about your mind having the capacity to have a thought virus. And these thought viruses, one of them that's super common is, I call it a Gemini virus. I didn't coin the term, someone else did. But it's these two conflicting parts. And one could be your subconscious mind. It wants you to stay safe. That's the main thing. The other part says, I want you to expand. I want you to grow. I want you to live your passion. I want you to be happy. Well, they both have positive intent. So if you can see that your subconscious mind wants you to be safe, it has positive intent for you. Your conscious mind wants you to thrive. It has positive intent. So this might seem woo woo, but I invite those two parts of my brain to have a conversation. And I say, I understand you both have positive intent. You both want what's best for me. Would you be willing to come up with a solution or three solutions that will maintain the positive intent without the negative effects? And hopefully they say yes, right? And then when they come up with one, you ask both parts, okay, does this satisfy your positive intent for me? Subconscious mind. Yes, it does. Conscious mind. Does this satisfy your positive intent for me? Yes. Okay. Would you be okay if I implemented this? Yes. And then you do it. So you don't have that resistance. Both parts are included. You're not resisting or labeling any part of you as bad or wrong. You're
Mm.
just saying, okay, yes, I get to do this in a way that honors both parts. So I find that really, really helpful. I do that with clients a lot. We go through like visualization, like what does it look like? What does it sound like? For one woman, it was like the part that she was labeling negative was like a couch potato. She was overweight. She was on the couch under a blanket, unshowered. And what
Yeah.
does she want? So you can take it as far as you want, whatever serves you, and see what happens, and let me know how it goes because I
Yeah.
think that's really fun.
Yeah. Very, very fascinating. Well, I'll make sure that all of your info is in the show notes. So those of you that are listening, you'll be able to find her. And I know she offers different programs, so there might be something that fits with you. Thank you so much for sharing. Again, it's fascinating. These brains of ours, these minds of ours are miraculous things.
They really are. They are high powered computers that nobody has a manual to. But we're learning more and more how to work with them and use them for us instead of being in opposition or at battle. So I think it's fun to play with. And the less seriously you take this, the quicker you can implement it and the more fun you're going to have. So,
Awesome.
yeah,
Wonderful.
so much for having me, Rhonda. This was so much fun.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, folks, that's it for this week. We'll talk to you again next week.